I can finally figure out what the disturbance has been in the office. Alright, let's go. Not sweepy. Oh, we're getting closer. Oh my goodness, it's in the bathroom. Let's find out what it is. Quiet, careful. What could it be? Oh my goodness! Hey there, fellow maker. Welcome to the shop. Bill here. Today we got a really fun, hopefully quick project. This is the Ghostbusters PKE Meter, Psychokinetic Energy Meter. And we got this in October at the Halloween store. It was 35 bucks, and I'm really excited to take it apart and play with it. Now, I think this thing is pretty good by itself. In fact, if you're throwing together a Ghostbusters costume and you just bought this right off the shelf, it even has some batteries in it, that's pretty great. It's all animated. It's got lights in this display, and the arm things move up. And apparently this is longer. Yeah, so I can just be like, I can hit it again to close it. So by itself, this thing is fantastic, but I think we can upgrade it a little bit, just a little bit. The first thing I think I'll change will be just the basic paint on the whole thing. It's not bad, but it definitely reads as plastic, and I would love for it to read maybe as more of a metallic finish. We'll get into that in a moment. Our buddy Elton sent us some of these patches here, both a Doran and a Ghost patch. That's our buddy Elton from Nerdy Views. Eventually, I will make a Ghostbuster costume, and I can use this PKE meter for it. So I'm gonna make this into my PKE meter. This isn't Peter Venkman's, it's mine. So I'm gonna modify it a little bit. It won't be screen accurate, but it will be bill accurate. And that's all that matters. So I'm gonna start by taking this thing apart so that we can paint the outer shell. Turns out this thing actually has an on-off switch on the back, which is kind of cool because you can do that and then turn it off and it'll stay displayed like that. And turn it back on and it stays that way until you hit it. Very cool. Okay, let's turn it off, take the batteries out and start taking it apart. A pair of AAA batteries in there. This is the moment of truth when I crack this thing open. Hopefully everything doesn't go flying everywhere. So far so good. That part's easy. This clip on the back, I'm actually going to take off. I don't think I need it on mine. I may replace that with a more sturdy belt attachment at some point, but for now I'm just going to take this off. There we go. And this piece is just about ready for paint. So this piece I'm going to go put in a drawer somewhere and forget about for 10 years. All right, a couple more parts. This is the power switch there, so that can just come right off. This is actually great because I can paint that separately. Not worry about screwing up the switch. That part comes off. We don't need to do anything with that. And then this is the guts. And I need to decide if I want to try and take all of this off, which it looks like it might want to do by itself. Actually, if this all just comes right off, then that would make my job a lot easier. Oh, what? That is cool. Now, unfortunately, some of these wires are soldered. They can't be disassembled. But what I could do is wrap this part in tape so that when I'm spraying this, this won't get any paint on it. Look at this though, this is so cool. There's a motor here to turn these. There's a switch down here. When it's closed, it knows it's closed, and then when it's open, it knows it's open. This is a really clever little contraption for what, 35 bucks? I've decided to try and take all this stuff out. You can see the boards here are welded, the plastic is melted to hold it in. So I'm gonna go in with my rotary tool and etch that away until it hopefully just comes right out. Some of the other stuff here I can unscrew. These two parts here I definitely have to chew away at with the rotary tool. Yeah, that's loose. Awesome, so I'll just do that to all of them. So that wants to come out now, and that wants to come out. Fantastic. Hopefully I didn't damage this board, and hopefully I can get that all back in there. Oh yeah, look at that. It slides right out. Okay. Just like that. All right. These parts pop out, which is cool. I could repaint those. That pops out. Oh, this is welded on as well. These little buddies here are LEDs, and they line up with the 3 holes on here. I do want to get that out of there though, so I'm going to do that next. Now that comes off. Awesome. There it is. All right, it's time to sand and then paint. I'm gonna just scuff all of it with this scouring pad, but the battery door has text on it that looks to be unnecessary, so I'm gonna get rid of it. So this is a 220 grit sandpaper, and it seems to be aggressive enough to get rid of all that text. All right, let's give it a quick scuff with this thing. I'll do the same thing on the rest of the parts with this scouring pad, just so the paint has a little something to grab onto. But this guy's good to go. Just about there. Once this is all buffed up, I'm gonna use this flat black spray paint. For the technique we're gonna use, this will be the same way we painted our Proton pack a while ago. It's necessary that you use a flat paint. Usually paints come in glossy and satin and then, or semi-gloss or whatever. Definitely don't wanna use a glossy paint. Satin might be okay, flat would be better, or in this case, ultra flat. Because we're gonna rub graphite powder on this and the flat paint has a texture. So that graphite will have something to grab onto and it'll stick down to the surface. The next step is to use a paper towel and some rubbing alcohol to clean these parts off. If there's any dust, this will pick it up. If there's any grease from your fingers from touching this, that'll take it off. Make sure that the paint that we put down is gonna stick really well. Another thing about this particular brand of paint, this does a great job of grabbing onto plastics, so it's great for like Nerf guns, probably the same kind of plastic they use on Nerf guns. I just happen to like that brand. It may differ where you live. I've heard in Canada that Krylon uses a different formula, so your results may vary, but if you find a good flat black spray paint, it should work just fine. Oh, also with that Krylon stuff, you don't have to use a primer. It should stick just fine to the plastic, so we're not gonna hit it with a primer spray paint either.
Hey, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. It's because of your support we've been able to hire on a couple new employees here at Punished Props Academy. Let's check in on Paige. How you doing, Paige?
Oh, I'm great.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, it's awesome. By the way, if you want to gain access to some behind the scenes vlogs, extra credit videos, and early access to all of our build videos, then you can head on over to patreon.com/punishedprops today. Get access to that. Hey, let's check in on Everett, see how he's doing. Hey buddy, how's it going?
Hand me my coffee.
It's great.
Please?
Not until you've done all your work.
While that's drying, I'm gonna deal with these parts here. These colors are just a little too cartoonish for me, so I'm gonna try and paint them. I have some lacquers here. These are, Allclad makes them, they're called a hot metal. They're generally used for making like heat scorching on metal, but I think it's a good dark red transparent color that I'm gonna spray over this red, and hopefully it'll just make it a little darker, a little less cartoonish. Well, it might be a little subtle. Maybe I'll give it a couple of layers and we'll see how it looks. I'm masking off the red. It doesn't need to be really clean, only the end of it shows, so I just need to make sure I don't get any red paint on the yellow tip there, so we'll just do that. Okay, do some other colors. Gonna demask our red. These are lacquers, they do dry pretty fast. Still a little tacky though, so I wanna be careful if I touch that when I'm masking off the rest of it. Next I'm gonna do the yellow. Actually, I can leave this on. I don't wanna press that down on the red because it's still fresh, but I should be able to now just get the yellow. So it's just a little darker now. I definitely want to redo this green, but in here is yellow and I only have blue and red. But if I mix blue with yellow, I'm gonna hold this and push air through, and then when I pull it back, it'll bubble and mix it. And that looks like a really gross green. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, that's not at all what I wanted. Oh, that's better. I think even maybe just a tiny bit more blue. Yeah, now we're talking. Oops, someone's spilling paint everywhere. Ah, it's on my shoe. This happens to everyone, I'm sure of it. Time to add the really nice touch to the case paint job here. The flat paint is all dry. It already looks awesome. The flat texture just has a really nice matte, even shine on it, or lack thereof. To really make it look cool though, we're gonna use graphite. And this is just a stick of graphite. You could use a pencil. I just bought this from the art store. I have a fairly low grit sandpaper here and I can just grind this into a powder. And then this powder can be applied to our part. I'll start with this little guy. I've just got a paper towel. I'm just gonna pick up some of that powder and then just brush it on the surface. Now this will leave a nice, even sort of semi-metallic finish on something, like this flat piece right here, and it looks pretty cool. But where this really shines is when you have something like this part here with these nice ridges, any edges or detail that are gonna sort of highlight this effect really well. Now it's that flat texture on the paint that's grabbing this graphite and holding it down to the surface. So that's before, right there, and that's after. This can be kind of a subtle effect, but it definitely doesn't look like plastic anymore, which is nice. Definitely recommend wearing gloves if you're doing this. This powder can get everywhere, especially as you're grabbing this. That's not sealed, so it's just sort of resting there, and it's really easy to get it all over your hands. So this one here, this fella has not been rubbed down with graphite, and this one has. You can see it's got that, again, very subtle addition, but really effective. Now, one of the only downsides to this method is you definitely have to seal this, otherwise you'll just be getting graphite all over your hands. So for that, I have this metallizer sealer that Testers makes. This is one of the only ones I've found that seals metallic finishes without totally destroying the luster. So I'm gonna give that a go and seal this up and then let it dry. Everything seems to be pretty dry now. Give it about an hour, looking good. Before I start putting everything together, I want to add some grid lines to this little display part here. Thought of a couple different ways. I think the simplest way will just be to carve some lines into it with my see-through ruler. I'm just gonna use this ice pick to carve a line and hopefully it looks good. Yeah, that looks nice. Go up one line. Now we're talking. Nice thin lines. I am super happy with how that turned out. Let's see how it looks in the thing. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. And the color work I did on these buttons didn't change a lot, but it looks a little nicer, I think. I think I can start putting this whole thing back together. Hopefully it goes back together. That fits in nice and snug. And these things were welded in with melted plastic. Instead, I'm just gonna hot glue them and we should be all set. Yeah, that's how that went in. So just a little more hot glue. So when it comes to putting this sort of stuff back together, it's always good to have a reference photo. Should have mentioned that before when I took it apart. Take a good reference photo. We have video, obviously, I could go back and watch if I need to figure out how to put this together. Turns out this board has to get glued over that, so I have to take it apart. Careful, if I rip any of these wires, then that's it. This thing is done. It's so hard to resolder those tiny things. There, now that that's pressed in the right spot, I can hot glue it.
Are you sure?
Positive, we're good this time. Putting this guy back where I found it. Something else I'll do, and I should have done this before I started monkeying with this, these tiny little soldering points are not meant to take any kind of stress or strain. So hot gluing them before you take this whole thing apart provides a little bit of strain relief. I did not do that. Probably should have. That goes right in. That should go just like that. This can go back where it's supposed to go, which is over here. Is this on or off? Let's find out. It must be off. Is this on? Yep. So like I was saying before, there's a switch here and there's a switch there. So that turns it off. That lets it know it's fully extended. Let's do it again. Ready? Boop. As soon as that clicks, it stops rotating. And then once it finishes its sequence, it goes back and it stops when it hits that. So clever. And there's also, it's hard to see, but there's a ton of wires coming up. These wires here run all these LEDs, and they snake their way through the bottom, up and down these arms. The arms are like a silvery metallic paint, and I think I'm gonna leave them as is. I don't think I'm gonna try and upgrade those. Now I know other people have gone in and modified these to make the lights, the animation a little more accurate to the movie. So that's an option. I'm not going to do that today, but you totally could. There's also plenty of room in here to gut this entire thing and put in your own electronics. Different soundboard, different speaker, different power if you want, different lights. Again, this is bill accurate, so I'm happy with how this is, but you have plenty of options for your own.
Keep snacks in there.
Keep some snacks in there. Oh, I gotta screw this down. Oh, you know what else I want to do if I can find room for it, I'd love to put a little extra weight in this thing because it's just a little light. There isn't a ton of room, but I have some fishing sinkers and I could glue a bunch of them in here and in there. There's a bit of room in there too. I'm gonna go get my fishing sinkers. I don't have a thing here specifically for fishing sinkers. I think it might be in my miscellaneous thing. Yeah, there they are. Definitely want to make sure I don't get any glue in that switch because that would be really difficult to fix. That wants to go back together. Awesome. This. Still works. All right, let's screw it back together. I just dropped the screw on the ground. What are the odds that I find that ever? So I dropped the screw, it hit my toe, and then it went into Narnia, as far as I can tell. Fortunately, every time I take apart a Nerf gun, I keep some of the screws, and one of these should be good enough. Let's see if this guy wants to work. Yeah, there we go. Once again, being a hoarder has paid off. Very cool. So far it looks great. I really like how the grid has turned out, so that's pretty fantastic. Oh, also the weight. Obviously, hard to tell on camera, but the weight feels really great. So let's add a couple more things, then we'll do some weathering. Handle time, I just have some electrical tape, and I'm just gonna wrap it around there. Perhaps my PKE meter broke at one point, and this is how I fixed it. So I'm just gonna wrap it in electrical tape. I like the sort of semi-shiny texture on here. It's a little bit different than the shine we get off of the painted part, so I kind of like that. Okay, now that looks really cool. It'll look nice when we put a little oil paint on that too. But the astute among you may be like, yo, Bill, how are you gonna get that battery? That's a great question. I think I'm just gonna, now that the tape is down, cut that out. But I have to find the line. Actually, that's gotta go all the way across. So I can get at my screw. There we go. Very good. So now we still have our bit of tape on there. I want to make sure no one else confuses my PKE meter with their PKE meter, so I got one of these super sweet old school label makers. Ooh, oh, that's gone. This came with two different colors, black and red. So I just did both of them to see which one I like better. I'm thinking about putting it like on the back here. Yeah, I'm gonna do the red. There we go. One of the reasons I really wanted to use one of these, not only would it fit in with Ghostbusters 1984, but also it's got this raised texture on it, so when we weather it, it will catch some paint, I hope. I'm also noticing that where I cut my electrical tape is just kind of falling off. Maybe I just take it off the battery pack. Since I stretched it when I wrapped it around, it pulled away after I cut it. But it looks great on the front. For the weathering, I'm gonna do some oil paints here, just brown and black. You can even get wild with it though. I mean, if I'm hunting ghosts, I might be covered in ectoplasmic slime. But today I'm just gonna do black and brown just to dirty it up. And the main thing I want to do here is just break up this really sort of uniform surface. All right, I've covered all this. This part's fun, especially the label there. I have all that oil paint on it, and now when I wipe it off, it stays down in the crevices and everything, and it looks nice and grimy. I love working with these oil paints. You have so much time to work with them. I can cover this whole area up here and then come back with my paper towel and clean it all up. I'm also making sure I basically get everything because it leaves this nice greasy sheen behind. It actually makes the part that I want to look metallic look more metallic. It's really great. Pan de plata. Got myself just a little bit of rub and buff here, this wax metallic paint, and I am doing a very, very tiny amount on my finger here and just carefully grazing a couple of edges to give it a little bit of a shine. Again, subtlety is key here. You can overdo this so quickly. Some people like to wear gloves for this, I don't. And my finger's almost completely dry. And it's just adding a little bit of wear and tear to some of the edges. I don't want to get any on these LEDs because those would not be made of metal. So I'm not planning on clear coating this thing. I'm just gonna let all this dry. The oil paint takes a long time, like days or weeks even to dry. So I'm not going to clear coat this, at least not now. That's the last touch. We're all done. Ta-da! That was super fun. This is like a fairly legitimate looking prop, the kind I'm pretty proud to have in my collection. This only took like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours. I'm really happy with it. We'll have a link in the description if you want to go pick one of these up. I think they're still available on the Spirit Halloween website. Of course, all the tools and materials we use will be linked down below. If you have any questions about this build, leave your questions down in the comments. I'd be happy to help you out. Of course, thank you to our patrons for supporting us. We've got extra credit videos and behind the scenes vlogs and early releases for you guys. We'll have a link down below. You can go help us out if you like. That'll do it for today. And a quick one for you, but definitely the kind you could try out at home. I recommend it. Go grab yourself a toy and give it a repaint. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next build. I have the power! I was about to say how good everything was going.
Can you get me some toilet paper? Guys? Hello?